Hello, what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be walking through an example of a Java program that is working with a relational database. So what we want to do is we want to write a Java program that creates a coin table with coin names and values. So those are the names of the two columns in your table, name and value. And the name is going to have a varchar of 20, and the value will have a decimal data type of 4 places with 2 places to the right of the decimal place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to insert the coin types: a penny, which is worth 0.01 cents, nickel 0.05, dime 0.10, quarter 0.25, half dollar 0.5, and then a dollar. And after we go ahead and create that table and insert those values into the table, what we want to do is we want to print out the sum of our coin value. So in order to do this, we need to use the SQL commands create table, insert, and select sum to complete this assignment. So again, this is our table structure. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of data. Each row is going to contain two columns, the name and the value of the coin. So let me just go ahead and go into JGrasp. So in order to run this program, we need 3 separate files. The first one is our database.properties file, and all we need to do, since we're going to be running this example in Derby, is specify the URL. We do not need a username, a password, and then our actual JDBC driver is the derby.jar file that we have placed under our CIS263 directory. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a database called BigJavaDB. So that is our database.properties file. So what we're going to look at next is our simple data source file. So what this is just a simple data source for getting a database connection. So in our init method, we're going to initialize the data source, and what we're going to pass in is the file name, which is the name of the property file that contains our driver, URL, username, and password information for our database. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the properties class to go ahead and load up our file. And what that properties class is provides us a load method that we can read a file of key value pairs from a stream. So that's what we're doing in lines 25 through 27. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to store them in our props. And then from there, we're just going to get each one of the properties. So on line 30, we're going to get the JDBC.driver property. On line 32, we're going to get the JDBC.url property. On line 34, we're going to get the JDBC.username. If it's null, then we'll go ahead and set it to the empty string, and then the same thing for the password. So if we go back into that properties file, as you can see, what we did is each one of our properties, we have the property name on the left, and then our name on the left, and then we have our value on the right. So let's go back into our simple data source. So after we collect that information, as long as our driver is not equal to null, we'll go ahead and create a class for name with the driver name. And then we have a get connections method. So what that does is that actually gets a connection to our database. And what we're doing is we're passing in the URL, the username, and the password. So that is our simple data source.java file. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our CoinDB, and this is where we're going to go ahead and write our various SQL commands along with connecting to the actual database. So if we go ahead, we have our imports up above. We're throwing several exceptions, an IO exception, a SQL exception, a class not found exception. So the first thing we're going to do, if the args are equal to 0, meaning that they did not pass in a property file name, then we're just going to specify the usage, what the usage should be. So in our case, it's Java CoinDB, and then the name of the property file, which in our case is database.properties, and then we're going to exit the program. If our args length is greater than 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to pull in our URL, which is found in, we're going to pull in the actual database.property, which is found in arg0, and then we'll call our init of our simple database function, which is the file name. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a try with resources to get a connection to the data source and create a statement object. So what we're going to do next is we're just going to call our getConnection method on our simple data source class. And then after that, if we get that connection, we'll go ahead and create our statement object that we can use to create our statement that we're going to go ahead and execute. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call the execute method to execute the SQL to create the coin table. So what we have here is we have create table, the commands, keywords, and then we have the name of our table, which is coin, and then in parentheses what we're passing in each one of our information for each one of our columns. So this table is going to have two columns. The first one's going to be column name is going to be name, and then its data type is going to be varchar 20. The second name is going to be value for our column name, and the data type is decimal 4,2. And if you would have additional columns, then you would just separate them by commas using the following syntax. And then we'll go ahead and call the execute command, which should create our table in our CoinDB .java, or should create our table, would be in our big data base that we're going to be creating. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to create 6 different execute statements, and each one of these statements, what it's going to do, it's going to insert another row into our coin table. And what we need to do, the values is a special keyword in the SQL language. So what we need to do there is we need to then specify the name of our column, which is penny. And again, when you're using differentiating strings in SQL, you need to specify single quotes instead of double quotes, and then we have a comma, and then we would have the actual value for that coin specified as a decimal number. And again, if you would have additional columns, you would just separate them by commas and then use the correct syntax depending upon the data type for that column. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run 6 inserts to insert the 6 rows in our coin table. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, the program asks us to go ahead and get the sum of the values. So we're going to select sum from our value column, and what that sum function will do is it'll go ahead and sum up all the values in the value column and return that in this SQL query. So we're selecting a function called sum from our column value, and then we're retrieving that information from our coin table. And again, we're going to use a try with resources to get the result set using the highlighted query. So after that, we're going to go ahead and specify, do a quick if check, if result.next. So the next method does not return any data. What it does is it returns a Boolean value that indicates whether more data is available. So that's why we're running an if check. We're going to check to see if more data is available. And within that if statement, we're going to go ahead and print out some of the coin values. And then we're going to use the getObject method, which gets the value of the designated column in the current row of this result set object as an object. So what, again, the result sets, their indexing does not start at 0, it starts at 1. So what we should be seeing is we should be seeing one column of information, which is the sum. So we're going to go ahead and specify the information from that only column in our result set, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and print that information out. After, we're going to close our result set, and then we're going to go ahead and close our statement object, and finally close our connection object. So what I've done previously, if we go into the settings here, if we go into workspace and class paths, I've already added my derby.jar file to my class path. So I should be able to run it now without specifying the derby.jar on my class path. And then the other thing I've done is I've gone into build, and then I've selected run args. So what I can do here is I can go ahead and specify the run arguments when I go ahead and kick off my command. And what I'm passing in is my database.properties file, which is found under my CIS263 directory. Since it's under the directory where I'm running my program in, I do not have to go ahead and specify a path to it. So again, I need to go ahead and run from the main method of my CoinDB. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and compile. Everything seems to compile correctly. And then I'll go ahead and click on my run button. And it's slowly running, and it looks like a big Java DB got created, and the sum of my coin values is $1.91, so that's 6, 11, 6, 8, 9, 191. So that looks like it is correct. So again, what we went through is just how you can go ahead and work with an relational database with Java. So we will talk to you later.